let's jump into our next cleric from Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. We are talking about the Twilight Domain cleric. This is one of my favorites. I made a very strange character based off this domain. I feel like it has an air of illusion and trickery to it as well. But like I just enjoy it. I like. First off, who doesn't like Twilight? I'm not talking about the movies, but
Or the pony.
or the pony. Yeah, we could be talking about the pony. So tell me about the Twilight Domain.
A twilight transition from light into darkness often brings calm and even joy as the day's labors end and the hours of rest begin. The darkness can also bring terrors, but the gods of twilight guard against the horrors of the night. And yeah, that's what the Twilight Domain is. And I'm so glad we're showing off this art again.
Yeah.
I am more personally a fan of the Peace Domain, but this art is absolutely gorgeous. If you haven't, if you're listening to this, definitely go check it out.
There's a lot of brilliant art in Tasha's, especially for the subclasses that are so charming. Again, I recommend you check out the Order Domain artwork. Is probably my favorite piece of my favorite wink wink in all of it.
And what I like about this subclass is it is way more about the way you want to flavor it and just an aesthetic, in my view, than like Order. The Peace Domain and the Order and some of the others have a very clear line of what they're after. This cleric is a little bit more about just an overwhelming feeling about, and I don't know if you want to just jump into the spells, but it's kind of a lot more understandable once you see what spells you get, because they're very much just evocative of Twilight, but they're not necessarily about an edict or an idea or an express thing that you're trying to do. They're just about being really cool.
Yeah, it really is. Like, well, I mean, when you think of light, light and illusion, the trick of light, it's also about that period where you start to sleep. It has a lot of things that it can kind of connect to. So we've got fairy fire, which makes a lot of sense, giving advantage to all your friends, also basically showing you any invisible people that are running around. We've got sleep, which obviously makes a lot of sense for a Twilight cleric. Moonbeam definitely makes a ton of sense. I mean, especially when you consider that you can you're revealing things, you're doing a little bit of radiant damage as well. See invisibility again. If you're the master of like the point where light disappears and transitions into darkness, you probably have a good sense of what's invisible. Aura of Vitality makes a lot of sense. Lehman's tiny hut. You are the provider of kind of like that campfire experience, right? You are a safe place, a place to sleep, a place to rest. Aura of Life, greater invisibility again. You're making your entire party invisible now. Circle of Power, which is interesting. And Mislead makes tons of sense because now you have completely kind of mastered light itself, and you never know when you're actually hitting that this cleric, right?
Yeah.
You're playing with the shadows.
And being comfortable in it and making your whole party comfortable in it and keeping them safe when it gets dark. And I really like the aesthetics. And it gives you a lot of freedom as this cleric. This gives you a lot of freedom of what do you want to do? I just want to look cool, but you can kind of point this cleric in any direction and go. It's great.
Yeah. And you are, when we look at 5th level, Aura Vitality, anyone near you is getting health back. And Lehman's tiny hut. When you look at this it really is kind of like we're huddled around the campfire, from the dangers outside, and you're making the gloom a little bit less scary. So let's jump into the first level abilities, which are significant.
Yeah. So you become tanky cleric. You get proficiency in martial weapons and heavy armor.
Surprising to me. But it makes it, again, you're kind of a protector. So this is like really great for this. I'm a little surprised. I'm generally a little surprised that this didn't end up on the Peace Domain. But I like it. I think it's fantastic.
Well, and I think that's one of the reasons why the Peace Domain, one of the capstone abilities, is it gives you your abilities from further away, and it gives
Yeah.
you more of that range. This, when you look at some of the abilities that are coming later, it makes even more sense because not only are the things that you're doing that are protecting everybody require you to be very close to them, but this is a martial cleric. When you get into battle, you are whacking people with weapons. You
Yeah.
are not reliant on your spells nearly as much. And the two first level features that we're going to talk about
I mean, there's
also.
3.
Oh yeah, that's true if you count the bonus proficiency. So I'll talk about Eyes of Night. The you can see through the deepest gloom. You have dark vision out to a range of 300 feet. 300 feet. In
Yeah.
that radius, you can see in dim light as if it were bright light, and darkness as if it were dim light. So the 300 feet, I say that several times because that is significant even if you are playing a race that already has dark vision.
Oh yeah, that blows any of your dark vision completely out of the water. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And as an action, you can magically share the dark vision of this feature with willing creatures you can see within 10 feet of you, up to a number of creatures equal to your wisdom modifier, which should be pretty good. The shared dark vision lasts for an hour. Once you share it, you can't do so again until you finish a long rest, until you expend a spell slot of any level to share it again, which is also super cool. This is something you can just do, and it helps everybody, and it helps everybody for an hour.
Yeah.
And you know what, at higher levels, the idea that I could just blow like a first level spell slot and get this again for an hour, that's amazing. I love this.
It and this is again, I actually made an. I can't believe I'm saying this. I made an Aarakocra that was actually an owl Aarakocra, because I just love that idea of sharing dark vision, to seeing further than anyone else possibly can, and that kind of gets us into vigilant blessing, because you're kind of almost, because you have this sense of light, you're almost on a perch on a tree, right? You have a greater sense of things. So at first level, the knight has taught you to be vigilant. As an action, you could give one creature, including yourself, advantage on the next initiative roll that creature makes. This benefit ends immediately after the roll, or if you use this feature again. This is fantastic and really powerful if you're a dark version of this Twilight Cleric and you got like an assassin in the party or something like that. But this is just this is how overwhelmingly aware you are of your surroundings.
And it's another really unique feature that this cleric has to help the party out, because I don't think you have to even go dark. There are
No.
characters in every party in where going high on the initiative is super important, not just assassins for being able to do some of their cool stuff.
Yeah, blasters.
Any of the blasters, rangers, there's a bunch of stuff, and then depending on the situation that you can find yourself in, sometimes it is good to have the cleric go first, the bard go first. If you're preparing for a specific battle or a specific series of events, helping the person who really should go first so that everybody can key off of them is really neat, and it's not a feature you see in a lot of other places.
Absolutely. And so do you want to jump into Channel Divinity at second level?
Yeah, you can use your channel divinity to refresh your allies with soothing twilight. As an action, you present your holy symbol and a sphere of twilight emanates from you. The sphere is centered on you, has a 30-foot radius, and is filled with dim light. The sphere moves with you and lasts for 1 minute or until you are incapacitated or die. When a creature, including you, ends its turn in the sphere, you can grant that creature one of these benefits. You can give them temporary hit points equal to 1d6 plus your cleric level, or you can end one effect on it, causing it to be charmed or frightened. I think it is really important that the sphere moves with you so that you can just cover the entire party. You're the wandering cleric walking through the front lines, easing people's fears as they face the dragon.
Yeah. Yeah, I think this is great, and it can be quite fun to kind of describe what this sphere looks like too. That's allowing you, and this kind of gets bumped up, I believe, a little bit later. So we have Steps of the Night at 6th level. You can draw on the mystical power of night to rise into the air. As a bonus action, When you are in dim light or darkness, you can magically give yourself a flying speed equal to your walking speed for 1 minute. You can use this bonus action a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus, and you regain expended uses when you finish a long rest. You can just fly. You just
And
fly in darkness.
I'm gonna talk about your wonderful Aarakocra cleric for a second here,
Because now I don't really need to fly.
but it's important because depending on how restrictive your DM is, if you're wearing
Right.
heavy armor, you cannot fly as an Aarakocra.
That's true.
This gives you that flight back.
It's again, you are the owls. Like so whether you decided to play an Aarakocra or whatever race that you chose, at 6th level, you really have this ability to get the high ground and see what's going on the battlefield. And the fact that you can now fly around the battlefield amongst your friends, it allows you to, get them covered by, say, that Twilight Sanctuary, get within 30 feet very easily. And I like the idea that, like, when it gets dark, the rules of, like, even gravity stop applying to you. Once we start seeing those stars come out and we see, the dawn or the dusk, you somehow become more powerful. And this is a great example of that power, or like when you're in the shadows. I really do kind of love. There's a creepiness to it, and there's kind of a wonderful Halloweeny autumnness to it as well. It's a very transitional cleric. I think it's super fun, and I think this is very unique from, say, the light domain cleric, much in the way that I would say that the grave domain cleric is very different than the death domain cleric, right? They're dealing with different aspects of light that are significantly viewed differently in our cultures and in narratives. So
can I offer?
You may offer
an Azamar cleric, and so you hover above the battlefield filled with twilight, and then you burst your wings, and
now they're functional.
Yeah. Well, and not just about the flying, but when you are, depending on the kind of Azamar you are, being able to produce, a couple of them produce a huge radiant effect. And
That's
so
true.
being twilight to dawn, being that whole sequence of events of, bringing the darkness and then exploding into action, I think could be a really epic moment.
I mean, this is a flying cleric with heavy armor. like get ready. You're not gonna run into that a ton. So tell me about Divine Strike at 8th level.
Yes, you remember how we were talking about you get martial weapons and heavy armor? Well, guess what? You gain the ability to infuse your weapon strikes with divine energy. Once on each of your turns, when you hit a creature with a weapon attack, you can cause the attack to deal an extra d8 radiant damage. When you reach 14th level, you get 2d8. Because why not have a little bit of paladin in your cleric?
Yeah, you're radiant, fairly tough to resist. You're not kind of pulling a Neo and just flying around the battlefield and striking things. That's pretty fantastic.
Yeah,
and a lot of clerics get Divine Strike of one type or another at 8th level. So it's not surprising here, especially for a martial class. So at 17th level, this is a big capstone. This is Twilight Shroud. The Twilight that you summon offers a protective embrace. You and your allies have half cover now while in the sphere created by your Twilight Sanctuary. This seems very basic in the fact that this is only a sentence, but you have to take a look at what half cover means in D&D. So let's go ahead and kind of review that real quick.
While you're pulling that up, I will remind everybody that you are the battlefield cleric that's in the front lines, and the Twilight Sanctuary is a 30-foot radius. So suddenly people who usually do not have any options for cover suddenly have this cover.
Yeah, and this is kind of something, I'm not sure if it's the Psy Knight or somebody else can also kind of do something similar to this. I mean, Psy Warrior, but a target with half cover gets +2 bonus to their AC and their dexterity saving throws. That's a lot.
Yep.
I mean, especially at 17th level, you need all the AC you can get. Getting that bonus to dexterity saving throws is great. The fact that you're giving it to people within 30 feet of you is amazing. So
And you're probably giving it to people who really need a little bit of extra dexterity and a little bit more AC, because they're
yeah.
the people on the front lines. They're the people getting hit. They're the people who are really trying to dodge that dragon fire, and they need it. So
And again, it's not like you're creating an actual barrier to anybody else. It's only a barrier to your enemies. So it's not something that's like hindering the battlefield for your players. Yeah, I think this is a nice capstone, particularly for this. These are two clerics, and clerics often are very much about buffing their party, and these are both very helpful. Do you have any questions about the Twilight Domain cleric? That
we
can
do.
delve
We got a
into?
couple from chat. Can you combine a Twilight Cleric's Channel Divinity Twilight Sanctuary with the steps of the Brave ability to continue granting flying speed each turn? Bonus, no hover speed, you drop at the end of each turn. So steps of the Brave, I would have to look that up. I don't know if you've got that up already.
Steps of the Brave?
Yeah, I think let me look that up real quick.
Where is this coming from?
I don't know. It
I've
sounds like a
never
monk
heard
thing,
of
but
Steps
I
of the
will.
Brave.
Yeah.
It must be coming from something else.
Yeah, tell us where Steps of the Brave is coming from, and we'll look that up, because I'm not as familiar off the top of my head. And then there was a suggestion for a gothy cleric, Twilight Domain plus Circle of the Spores plus Gloomstalker. What else is good for a dark campaign?
Yeah, it's pretty creepy putting the Gloomstalker in there with the old Twilight Domain cleric. I think that there is it certainly makes sense, and now your dark vision is like a nightmare.
Yeah.
I don't think I think Gloomstalker does. It doesn't stack. I think like if you have dark vision, it goes up to 90 feet, and then it's 60 feet if you don't. So
I mean,
but
you also
you're invisible. You're invisible if people rely on dark vision, so you can see everyone, but no one can see you. Is very, very, very creepy.
Yeah, I think you add a Way of Shadows monk in there too.
And you're wearing heavy armor now. So
yeah,
and you can really unleash a lot of damage initially. Yeah, that does sound like some goodness, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is another one of those moments in where if you can convince your party to all to go in on an aesthetic together and be like, all right, I'm going to be the Twilight Cleric. You're going to be
the Shadow Group. Yeah.
You're going to be the Twilight.
Well, even multi-classing, it's nasty.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty rough stuff.
Oh, it's Steps of the Night. Which give me a second.
Are we talking about the Druid?
Think it is.
No, Steps of the Night is the 6th level ability. Yeah, you.
Oh yeah.
What's their question about that feature?
Do they grant a continual flying speed? I don't.
For 1 minute, yes.
Yeah, it's just 1 minute, but I don't think you can. I don't think you can cheese it. I think that's what's getting asked here. Let me.
It's limited by your proficiency bonus, and you regain those uses after a long rest. So you're not flying forever.
Yeah, unless you do something else to let yourself fly.
What you're looking at is like maybe 3 or 4 minutes. You're going to be flying around, but yeah, you're not going to be flying to the moon.
That'd be fun though. That'd be super, super fun.
Now, interesting if you start getting weird about the mobility feat, right?
Oh, yeah.
Since this is based off your walking speed, you take mobility, and now we're looking at you moving at 80 feet per second. Per minute. 80 feet per action. Sorry, not per minute. Per second. That would be, yeah.
One of those is super slow. Driver. One of those is a race car driver. Yeah. Does the Twilight Sanctuary overrule any magical light source with its dim light? Would a subsequent magical light source disperse the dim light, such as someone casting light on the cleric's breastplate? So Twilight Sanctuary, it just says it's filled with dim light, but it doesn't say that it's magical. It doesn't say that it does anything special. I think the dim light is to help some of the other features that require you to be in dim light to do stuff. But yeah, I think there's it's not a spell, so it can't be dispelled. But yes, I think. I think it'd probably be up to your DM at that point, but if I'm facing off against a Twilight Sanctuary cleric, a Twilight cleric with this sanctuary going on, and I cast light on their breastplate, first off, I'm within 5 feet of them, and that's probably dangerous. But also, yeah, I think you're probably disrupting.
Yeah, you might
It's
be
not gonna.
disrupting. Yeah,
It's
it's
not going to
interesting.
disrupt the power because the power just says you have to be in the sphere, but it's going to disrupt the dim light, which
Interesting.
might
Yeah,
disrupt other
that's an
things.
interesting call. Yeah, this can get a little finicky in terms of like
Yeah.
deciding how this works. Yeah.
That's an interesting thing to do.
Yeah,
But
I don't
yeah.
normally I have very hard opinions on things, but I'm like, ooh. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because like I feel like it would override if there was a light spell nearby and then you did this, it would override it. But it is kind of like just stacking. So
Yeah, because so that's when the two. All right, so you run in. you've got enemy Twilight cleric
yeah.
who cast their channel divinity. You run in and you cast light on their breastplate or their sword or something, which just happens. I think as a DM, I'd probably rule some kind of attack roll. I'd probably do something there. But now the bright light goes off, and so your abilities from the Twilight Sanctuary still work, but the dim light is probably now gone. And so now your steps of the night might not work. Like, this could get interesting. This could be the moment when you're facing down the evil version of this. I'm excited by this. I find this kind of stuff fascinating because I do like throwing as a DM characters at my players. I like having my big bads or enemies be full on PCs.
Yeah,
When I can, it's often a little bit it's a little too much to make a full PC, but like being able to go and be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna make a wildfire druid and throw that at them. But like this is an interesting thing
and
to
it's
think
not
about.
an attack roll. Like if you try to cast light on somebody or a target that is being held by them, it's actually a dexterity saving throw
That's
to
yeah.
avoid the spell, because otherwise this gets pretty abusive and really shuts down this particular cleric. And hey, you can always take off armor or whatever you need to if things are pretty desperate. But yeah, it is interesting. It is a little counterspelly, right?
Yeah.
In terms of like your enemy is light. You do get to do a lot of things with dim light. So
I don't think it's too bad because there's a lot of ways to avoid this. And once
who's
again,
got light prepared? So
light clerics, and now it's a battle between light clerics and Twilight clerics.
The old
D&D is not a PvP game.
The old vendetta.
Nah, I see these two working together. I see the aesthetics might be different, but the defending your friends, I think it's a through line through most clerics. How they do it is way different, and their motives behind it are way different. But the idea of protecting your allies is a through line that is really important, I think, to most cleric classes, to subclasses. And yeah, this is one of those moments in where I don't think you have a Twilight cleric and a light cleric in the same party, and then they must fight.
No. So any more questions?
No, I don't think so, but that actually makes sense because we're right here at the end of time.
We are at the end of time. Yeah, if you have any more questions, be sure to ask. I do adore the Twilight cleric the most. Also has the coolest art. I'm just saying it. No.
Yeah, I like the Peace Domain more, but for a subclass, but the Twilight Domain art is absolutely gorgeous.
It is. Yeah, these are two solid cleric offerings. I'm very happy with both of these. And I am terrified of any cleric that is flying around in heavy armor and has the martial proficiency. I just imagine this floating, full-plated cleric, right? Just impossible. This impossible vision, right, of just floating around the battlefield. It's so scary in such a weird way.
Or inspiring, or epic, or
you've got that mislead ability too. So you're starting to get really. It's hard to hit you. You're making your friends invisible. It really. I think it hones in on a particular itch that you're trying to scratch when it comes to the Twilight Domain. So
Absolutely. And yeah, if you run either of these domains, please let us know, comment or send us a message. I am super excited, especially if you run a game that has both of them in the same game. Let me know.
Yeah. Yeah, that's going to be
Peace
interesting.
and Twilight. Why not?
Why not? All right. Thank you, everyone. This was Build's character. Thank you, Lauren Urban, our community manager over at D&D Beyond. I am Todd Kenreck, your host, and your creative manager over at D&D Beyond as well. Thank you so much for watching. Both these subclasses are available in Tasha's Cauldron of Everything, so be sure to check out that book. It is probably one of my favorite D&D books since the Tome of Magic in 2nd edition, in terms of there's a lot of really cool stuff you have there. Also check out the Barbarian Path of Wild Magic. I'm just saying, it's really cool. I really like it.
Also check out the magic items, because teeth.
Yes, that's right. I stop bringing up the teeth. It's so upsetting. I don't like any magical items involving teeth. Don't like it. I mean, what do you find them in a doll? That's my real question.
I love that I found the one thing that creeps Todd Kenreck out.
There are a couple of things I draw hard lines at, and often when I'm DMing, if I'm putting you up against it, it means I hate it. So I often play characters I don't like, actually. I don't know what that says about me in a psychological sense, but
that's a whole other show.
That's a whole other show, and I need therapists to be on the show with us. So thank you so much for watching. Stay safe out there. Stay home, wear a mask, and play some D&D. Bye.
Tasha's Cauldron of Everything is available now on D&D Beyond. Purchase before January 5th to unlock the Cauldron dice set, as well as character sheet backdrops, themes, and frames.